And yes, you are right. Today is the very first podcast of the J&B podcast. And welcome. Welcome to a very special edition of the J&B podcast as we are live from Chicago, Illinois. And I'm glad to be here today. I'm glad that, well, I could say the Yankees are playing extremely well. I mean, before we get into anything sports related, I just want to say welcome to the very first episode of the JV podcast, featuring myself, Brandon Schwartz, and John Giordano, who is not here today. He will hopefully be here at the next podcast that we do. Um, but it's glad to be here. I'm glad we're ready to rock. Uh, I hope whoever's watching, you enjoy our show. And we're going to try and do this as much as we can. We're going to try and do this podcast at special events. We're going to try and, we're going to try and do football shows. We're going to try and do, as we get closer to the NBA draft, we're going to try and do an NBA draft show. And we're going to try and have guests on our show as much as possible. I'd like to have some guests on the show. Uh, you know, it's good to have more people on the show. We can have interviews with them. We can talk about anything sports related and anything you'd like to talk about. But if you see where I am in Chicago. We are getting ready for a wonderful, I hope it's going to be a very interesting series because we have two good teams. Well, the Yankees are just off to a terrific start. I mean, the Yankees are just off to an amazing start. They're 22-8. They're unstoppable. They just swept the Blue Jays in a 2-game set. They are just unstoppable, and nobody can get to them. And this is where the Yankees can be scary. But we haven't played the Rays yet. Who I'm a little worried about because, they're a team that could pick it up throughout the season. I'm a little worried about Boston, but I don't think Boston's been playing very. Boston has just not been playing well this season, and Boston's a weird team because they have a very good roster. They have a good coach, but they're the team that one year they'll be really good, and then the year after they'll be really bad. But the team I'm concerned the most about is going to be the Tampa Bay Rays because we haven't played them once yet, and this is unusual for the Yankees schedule. That we haven't played them once, and it's already middle of May. So, but the Yankees have had a good cushion to start the season. They've beaten teams like the Orioles, the Royals. They've beaten the Blue Jays a few times. They've beaten the Red Sox. So I'm very pleased with the way the Yankees are playing right now. And I'm a little concerned about the Rays, but I think if the Yankees keep playing at the pace they're at right now, I think they're going to be okay. And hopefully they go into this series against the White Sox tonight behind me, and they can try to win this series again because the Yankees haven't been losing series. They've been winning most of the series they played, and it'd be great to see them win this series here in Chicago, who is a team that is getting off to a slow start, but now they're starting to pick it up a little bit. I am very, I've always liked the White Sox, organization. I never thought they made terrible moves as a team. I like Abreu a lot. I think Abreu is a very good power hitter. I really think Tony La Russa is one of the better managers in the league for sure. And, this team is a team that doesn't have the best roster, but they have a good all-around team. You have Jose Abreu, who's off to a good start. He's off to a little sluggish of a start. He's at a 217 average, 3 home runs, 12 RBIs. Tim Anderson, very good start. 4 home runs, 12 RBIs, 347 average. I like Tim Anderson. I always liked him. I thought he was always the player that any team would want. He's got that all-around ability that any team would want. So I like him. I think this team, and I like Keuchel as a pitcher. Listen, go back to 2017. The Yankee fans, they had a tough, the Yankees loved, didn't always love playing against Keuchel. Keuchel was always a tough pitcher, but they did hit him well in the 2017 championship series against the Astros, which was a series that the Yankees should have won. But, they didn't score enough runs in Houston, but that's for another day. But I'm very pleased I'm very pleased with the Yankees' performance so far. I really think that the Yankees are just going out there and just doing what they can to win games. Now, there's a couple of things I would adjust here if I'm Aaron Boone. I don't love Aaron Judge playing center field. I think what they need to do is they need to move Judge back to right. I think what they can do is I haven't loved the way Hicks has performed lately. So what I would do is maybe see what I would do if I'm Aaron Boone is I would love to re-sign Brett Gardner. I think re-signing Brett Gardner to a one-year deal would be amazing. You could put him in center field, then you could put Hicks in left field, and then maybe Joey Gallo could be a utility player, and then you have Stanton as a DH. See, that's what I would do. I don't love the idea of Judge in center field. I didn't like that from day one. I just don't think that guys like him are meant to play center field. I think, you need to have the guys like Brett Gardner, or Aaron Hicks play center field because they're a lot faster and they're meant for center field. Judge has, and I got to say, Judge has done a pretty good job in center field. I'm not going to lie. But, Judge has meant to be right field, so that's just the way it is. But I'm very pleased with the Yankee performance overall this year. I think Rizzo's had a fantastic start. Everybody has played well. I can't say that the Yankees have made any bad moves right now as we get the season underway. So, yes, the Mets are also playing really well. And we're going to get into the Mets right after a commercial break. Now, before we get to commercial break, I will set up an email that if you want to send in any questions to ask me and John, who will be here hopefully the next podcast, any questions that you would like us to say on the air, because we would love to hear from you, the fans, and anyone that's listening. So we're going to go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk the Mets because the Mets have been a big surprise to everybody this year, and they should be very proud of what they've done. But the Met fans are pumped, and they have a right to be. And we'll talk about that after the commercial break. All right, we're back on the JB podcast, our very first episode. This episode is brought to you by our good friends at Serravo Broadcasting and our good friends at Schwartz Center with the Madman. And this is also brought to you by Bear Birch. So, to the Mets. I don't think the Mets are I just don't think the Mets have had any bad problems this year. I just think they have just played. All I can say is they just had a great start. And, haven't played bad. I mean, I can't say anything bad about the Mets. And listen, if you're a Yankee fan, you don't want to see the Mets always win. But you know what? I like Scherzer. I think Scherzer is probably the best pitcher in the league, in my opinion. I mean, he's just nonstop, untouchable. I mean, he doesn't give up. He strikes out pitches. He's just doing everything right. He's clicking all the right buttons. And what I like always about Scherzer is he always had a good windup. I'm not a fan of pitchers who have a slow windup. I picture with a slow windup, I feel like slows up the game a little bit and you lose the intensity. Now, a guy who has a slower windup would be an example like Clayton Kershaw, and I'm not a fan of the way he pitches. I think he's a very good pitcher. I just don't love his rotation that much. I like Scherzer's windup a lot better. I even like Garrett Cole's windup, a lot. So we got to see. We just have to see. Now we're just playing the waiting game here. If you're a Met fan, you're going to know what I'm talking about here. We're playing the waiting game because you know the drill. By about June and July, the Mets start losing games. But let's hope, if you're a Met fan, you got to hope that you're not going to be in that predicament this year. You got to hope that you're going to win consistently throughout the season, and then eventually, before you know it, boom, it's October, you're in the postseason. And I think they do have a chance, and I think they're going to make the playoffs, in my opinion. I think they're going to make the playoffs. Question is a wild card or division. Well, right now, they are in a very good spot in the division. They are just unstoppable. They are first place in their division. They are 6.5 games above Atlanta. And Atlanta's a tough team. But the Mets have just been winning division games against the Nationals, who are just starting off the season ferociously. They're beating teams like the Phillies. They're beating teams like the Marlins. They actually haven't played the Marlins yet. But the point is that they're winning games that they should. Now, let's see, hopefully, as they get to games when they have to play the Dodgers or, you got to play, when you got to play the Padres more, when you got to play, when you got to play Pittsburgh, when you play those teams, or when you got to play teams like the Milwaukee Brewers, that's where the Mets are going to have to play a little. That's where they're going to have to be careful, because those are the teams that they can't give up against. So all I can say is Steve Cohen has pushed all the right buttons. Buck Showalter has pushed all the right buttons so far, as this team has just started off the season amazing. And, all I can say is both New York teams have just put on a show for their fan base. I mean, we're on the verge of potentially seeing a Subway Series in the postseason. Now, I don't want to get too ahead of myself here. But wouldn't we all like that? A Subway Series in the postseason, a rematch of 2000? That would be amazing. That would be amazing, and just the demand for tickets would be off the chart. And, especially, after what we just went through with the pandemic, we could all use a series like that to see the Yankees Mets in the postseason in the World Series matchup. That would be amazing. That would be awesome. And when John comes on the show, we'll talk more about the Mets, because obviously I'm not trying to be I'm not a Met fan. John is a big Met fan. I'm a Yankee fan. So expect me and him to have a lot of Yankee Met debates on this podcast, as you could expect with any Yankee Met fan. We're gonna probably have debates. Yankee Mets fans, we're gonna probably have debates with each other. Nothing crazy, but we'll probably go at it with each other here and there, as a lot of people do. So we probably will do that. And we're going to also, when we get closer to the postseason, we're going to try and do, I want to maybe look at possibly doing a, if let's just say the Yankees are in the postseason, I want to do like maybe I'll do a pregame and then a postgame show on this podcast network, just to get ready for the game. And maybe what I'll do is I'm going to try and work my rear end off to try and get some guests on the show. I would love to have guests for the postseason. That would be awesome. And when I mean guests, I don't mean star. I mean, people within my network who I know. So I'd love to have them on the show to talk about, getting ready for the games and stuff. And also, I might when it comes time, the NBA Finals, I'll probably do an NBA Final show with John. Uh, I'd love to see we might do a post game show for each game. Not sure yet. We're thinking about it. It is debatable. Um, so we're going to think about. We got a lot of stuff on the table, and we are. This is our first show, so we're still thinking of ideas, what we want to do in terms of our setup. But all I could say is right now, I'm in Chicago, getting ready for this Yankees White Sox series. And when we come back, we're going to take another commercial break. When we have I'm going to. And after commercial break, what we're going to talk about is we're going to get into the NBA. And if anybody doesn't know me, I am a Knicks fan. I'm going to talk about the Knicks offseason a little bit. And then we're going to get into, who you think, we're going to talk about what the NBA draft looks like. Who do you think the top three people that are going out are going to be? And who do you think the Knicks should possibly get in the NBA draft? So right after this commercial break, we're going to get into the Knicks a little bit. We're going to get into the Knicks, and then we're going to take one more commercial break, and then we're going to come back, and then we're going to wrap it up, and then we're going to head over to right across the street to the Guaranteed Rate Field and get ready for the Yankees White Sox game. We'll see you right after this commercial break. All right, we're back on the J&B podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Schwartz. Also, John Giordano will be here at the next podcast. So right now, today, it's just myself on the show. John will hopefully be here next time as we get ready for uh, hopefully a very interesting podcast between me and John. This is our first podcast, and we hope that we do many more for you guys. So, as we said before commercial break, we're going to talk about the Knicks a little bit. And before we get into that, I just want to say, if you do have any emails that you'd like to send us, I don't have an email yet to send questions to, but once I do have the email, you could send it to the email that will be. I will have the email by next podcast. So once I have that email, I will share it in the screen on the screen in the on the logo box, and then you can send us any questions you like, and then if you send us a question, we will say that we will try to mention it at the next podcast. And we hope that you guys send us anything you'd like. Don't be afraid to send us anything. We'd love to hear from you guys. So, to the Knicks. All right, listen. We all expected the Knicks after that season in 2020, 2021 to come out strong in 2021, 22. And they did. They did come out to a good start. Now, they just couldn't keep it up throughout the season. Now, I don't know if part of that had to do with, fans in the stands the whole season. Now, you got to remember, last year when the Knicks came back from the pandemic in December 2020, I believe it was. When they came back in December 2020, they started the season from then to March of 2021 with no fans. Now, question was, do you think the players were pressured? Do you think the players were eased when there weren't fans in the stands? You think that they just were not nervous but maybe they were playing better without people in the stands. And then you look, the Knicks play in 2021 to 2022. The whole season it was back to normal with full capacity arenas. They come back, And maybe they were a little nervous. Maybe they just weren't used to a crowded arena. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I'm questioning the fact that maybe they play better when there's no fans in the arena. Now, obviously, we can't do that anymore because we have to have fans in the stands for revenue purposes. But that could be an idea that maybe they were pressured. Maybe a lot of these players who were participating in season 2 seasons ago, maybe they just weren't comfortable playing with sand, and maybe they just felt better playing without fans in the stands. Because if you look, they go to the playoffs against the Atlanta Hawks, so everyone thought that the Knicks were going to crush the Atlanta Hawks in that series. And then eventually, Trae Young goes off. The whole, Trae Young chant goes off. Everybody gets mad at Trae Young. He plays lights out. And then the Knicks lose that series in 5 games. So they didn't play the best playoff series. The fans were electric, though. That was the loudest I think I've ever heard the Garden. The last time the Garden was like that had to be the late 90s. The Garden is always loud, but I haven't heard the Garden that loud since the late 90s. So that was a good time. But unfortunately, the Knicks didn't get what they wanted. They didn't win that series. They only won. It's not like they went to 7 games. They lost. They only won 1 game out of the 5 games they played. Like, I don't understand. It had to be fan related because they played the whole season well, and they go into the playoffs and they struggle. So it had to be maybe nerves. It had to be pressure related. But I think this team, and I really think this team is learning a lot. This team is a team that I think is just meant to they're meant to play together. They have a great coach in Tom Thibodeau, who I've always loved. Even when he was with Chicago, I just always loved Tom Thibodeau, and I think he was always meant for this team. I just think what we need to do now is go into the offseason and potentially make a move here. We need a star. And I think, and I'm a little concerned about Julius Randle because I don't know if Julius Randle is the guy that the Knicks want. I don't know if he's the guy that will change this franchise forever. There were rumors saying that he wanted to get out of New York. He didn't want to play there anymore. But who knows if those rumors are true? Will he be the guy that the Knicks keep and uses the face of the franchise? If not, try and go after Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell would be an awesome pickup for this team. Now, you clearly saw in the playoffs when he didn't really look like he had any interest in playing with his team anymore in the Utah Jazz. He seems like he might want to trade to New York. And that would be, for Knicks fans, would love that for sure. Plus, he's from New York. His dad has affiliation with the Mets. So it would be an awesome pickup for the Knicks and really mean a lot to this franchise. As this franchise, I wouldn't say is starving for a playoff run, but is starving for a championship. Okay, the Knicks haven't had a real championship since 1973. Okay, that's a long time. That is a long time since the Knicks had a championship. And the Knicks have made great runs in the late 90s with the Patrick Ewing era. And, the Van Gundy and Starks, Oakley. But what will it take for the New York Knickerbockers to get back to the NBA Finals? Will it be a player like Donovan Mitchell? Will it be a player that's emerging, maybe like a guy, who's becoming an NBA star this year or next year? Will it be a future draft pick? No one knows. No one knows. All I could say is that the Knicks are heading in the right direction, I think. But it's going to take some more time to build around, because when it comes to the playoffs, it comes to how your gut feels, how you deal with the pressure, the nerves, and the Knicks have to figure out if they're meant for that. And I think they are. They just have to believe in themselves, and they have to. And they have to watch the 3-ball more. They have to defend the 3 a lot better than they have. And they haven't been defending the 3 at all. And a lot of teams haven't been defending the 3-ball well at all. The three ball has been a problem that many teams have had trouble guarding against because folks, the NBA game has changed. The NBA changed. The NBA now is all about 3-pointers, just shooting threes. And this started, I think, when Steph Curry became a league player. When Steph Curry was constantly shooting threes, hitting them, I think everybody wanted to be like him and just started shooting nonstop. So I think the Knicks need to go out, get somebody like a Donovan Mitchell or somebody who's on the market. I just don't know if that's going to be the answer for them to be a NBA Finals contender or a big playoff push. Well, start off. Just get back to the playoffs next year. That's all that they should try to do right now. Get to the playoffs and work their way from there because that's what's really going to help them build their confidence going from season to season to season. And when we have John on, we're going to talk about, and I don't want to talk about the Nets right now. We're going to talk about the Nets on the next podcast. We're going to talk about the Nets on the next podcast. So when we come back from our last commercial break, we're going to wrap it up and just we're going to tell you what we're going to do from now on. What we're going to do on the next podcast. All right, we're back on the JV podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Schwartz. John will be on the next podcast, hopefully. So I just want to say I really liked how the show went today. I hope that, again, we learn from what we're doing here. And I really look forward, and I just want to say, I wanted to save this for last. I really look forward to working with John. I've been really close with John. I think John has been a very good, I've been going to games with John for a long time. I think he's a very good sports guy to talk to. I think he knows a lot when it comes to sports. He knows a lot about his sports knowledge. He knows a lot, and I think a lot of you will enjoy listening to John. I think John really brings a lot to the table. He really does. And I want to just, again, before we sign off, I just want to give a shout out to our good friends at Saraba Broadcasting for helping us with producing this podcast setup and much more. And we hope that we have Doug, the leader of Saraba Broadcasting and the president of Saraba Broadcasting. We hope to have him on here in the future, and we hope that we could use you as a sponsor for many years to come. As we also, watch your show. If any of you haven't seen Doug's show, Saraba Broadcasting has been a very good broadcasting company. They have really done well. They really have. I really have been inspired by their work. Their work has been really well done. And I hope that, we could partner up in the future and possibly be sponsors for each other. So thank you, Doug, for all you do, and thank you for helping with the JB podcast setup. So on that note, we're going to get ready for the Yankees White Sox, which starts at 7 o'clock. We thank you all for watching the JB podcast today. Now, this is also a show you can listen to on Anchor, on the Apple Podcast app. So on that note, we thank you all for watching the JB podcast. And I hope next time John will be on the podcast with us, and I think he will be 100%. So hopefully John, and once John comes on the show, we're going to talk to John. He's going to tell you, and John's a funny guy too. He'll make some jokes. He's a really good guy to have in sports. On that note, thank you for watching the JB podcast. We hope that you all stay well, and everyone have a great May and a happy Memorial Day weekend in a couple of weeks. And again, you are listening to the JB podcast. Enjoy the Yankees White Sox, everybody.